You learned in school that Rome fell in the year 476. That is one of the biggest lies in popular history. Rome did not fall in 476. Rome did not collapse in a single afternoon when a barbarian king deposed a teenage emperor. Rome died slowly. Rome agonized for 1,000 years. The last Roman citizen died in the year 1453 inside the walls of a city called Constantinople, and she did not even know she was the last. She thought she was Roman. Her neighbors thought they were Roman. Their emperor signed his letters as Emperor of the Romans. And then, on a Tuesday morning in May, the cannons stopped firing, the walls broke open, and an entire civilization, 1,480 years old, quietly, finally ended. Between the official fall and the real death, 977 years passed. 9.5 centuries of gradual dying. This is the video your history class never gave you. This is the long agony of the greatest empire humanity ever built. Welcome back to Walter Reconstructs History. Today, we reconstruct the death of Rome, all 1,000 years of it. Let's start with the date everyone knows, 476 AD. In your textbook, the story goes like this. A Germanic warlord named Odoacer deposed a 14-year-old emperor whose name, and you have to appreciate the irony, was Romulus Augustulus, little Romulus, little Augustus. The empire founded by Romulus, raised to greatness by Augustus, ended by a boy who carried both their names like a costume, 2 sizes too big. Odoacer sent the imperial regalia, the purple cloak, the diadem, to Constantinople. He said, in effect, there is no need for a Western emperor anymore. One emperor in the East is enough, and that, the textbooks say, was the end of Rome. But here is the problem. Nobody alive in 476 thought Rome had fallen. Nobody. Odoacer kept the Roman Senate functioning. He kept the Roman coinage. He kept the Roman taxation system. He kept the Roman law. The people living in Italy in 477 woke up, went to the same forum, paid the same taxes, prayed in the same churches, and called themselves the same thing they had called themselves the day before, Romans. So, where does this date come from? Where does this idea, Rome fell in 476, actually originate? It comes from a man named Edward Gibbon, an English historian. He published a book in 1776 called The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. It is a brilliant book. It is also a deeply misleading one. Gibbon picked 476 as his symbolic endpoint because it made a clean narrative, a villain, a child emperor, a barbarian, a curtain falling. But 476 is not a historical event. 476 is a literary device, the real Roman Empire, the one that called itself Rome, the one whose citizens called themselves Romans, the one whose emperor wore the purple and ruled from a city founded by a Roman emperor, that Rome continued. It continued for almost another 1,000 years, from a city we now call Constantinople, but which its inhabitants called simply the city, or sometimes New Rome. In the Greek language, they had a word for their country. They called it Romania, the land of the Romans, not Byzantium. Nobody alive in this empire ever called themselves Byzantine. That word was invented by a German historian in 1557, 100 years after the empire was already dead. The people we call Byzantines called themselves Romaeoi, Romans. For 977 years after Romulus Augustulus was sent into retirement, there was a Roman emperor sitting on a Roman throne in a Roman city, ruling Roman subjects, fighting Roman wars. So when did Rome fall? It didn't. Not in 476. Rome was murdered slowly. Rome was buried in pieces, and the funeral lasted 10 centuries. To understand what really happened, you have to stop thinking of Rome's death as a moment. You have to start thinking of it as three deaths, happening in slow motion, separated by centuries. Rome did not die once, Rome died 3 times. The first death was territorial. That happened around 476. The western half, Italy, Gaul, Hispania, Britain, North Africa, slipped out of the empire's hands, not in one battle, not in 1 year, but in a slow, grinding erosion that lasted a century. Goths in Spain, Vandals in Tunisia, Franks in France, Angles and Saxons in Britain. The map of the West shattered into kingdoms with Roman names, Roman laws, Roman taxes, but no Roman emperor. The body of Rome lost its legs in 476, but the head was still alive in Constantinople. The second death was cultural, and this one is harder to date because culture does not die on a Tuesday. Culture dies the way a river changes course, gradually, then suddenly. Between roughly the 7th and the 9th centuries, something profound happened inside the surviving empire. Latin, the language of Cicero, of Virgil, of Augustus, stopped being spoken in the Eastern Empire. Greek took over completely. By the year 800, an educated man in Constantinople could no longer read the laws his ancestors had written 400 years earlier without a translator. Imagine that. Imagine if Americans 400 years from now needed a translator to read the Declaration of Independence. That is what happened to the Romans of the East. Their emperor still wore the purple. Their coins still said Romanorum. Their armies still marched under eagles, but they spoke a different language than Augustus. They wrote in a different script. They prayed in a different way. They had become, without ever admitting it, something new. A Greek-speaking, Christian, medieval Rome. The Roman they had been was already in some deep sense gone. Their grandfathers would not have recognized them. The third death was political, and this one has an exact date, May 29th, 1453, a Tuesday morning. We'll come back to that morning. You'll see every hour of it, because that day, that single sunrise, is when the last Roman citizen in the world watched the last Roman emperor die. But first, I want you to understand what life was actually like in those long centuries between the first death and the third, between 476 and 1453, because this is where the textbooks become silent. This is the dark, strange, fascinating middle, the long agony that nobody ever told you about. Before we walk into those 9 centuries, let me ask you a small favor. If you have made it this far, you already know this is not a regular history channel. We are not here to recite dates. We are here to reconstruct what it actually felt like to be alive in the past, to see what your textbook left out. If that is the kind of history you want more of, please hit subscribe to Walter Reconstructs History right now, before you forget. It costs you nothing. It tells the algorithm that this kind of slow, serious history deserves to exist, and it makes sure the next video, the one I am already researching, actually reaches you. Subscribe, then come back here. I will wait. Now, let's walk into the ruins. It is the year 600, 124 years after the so-called fall of Rome. A woman wakes up in a village in southern Italy. The village is built inside the shell of an old Roman villa. The marble columns are still standing, but the roof has fallen in, and her family has built a smaller wooden roof over one of the corners. She draws water from a well her great-grandfather drew water from. The well is Roman. The road outside the village is Roman. The bricks in her wall were fired by a Roman kiln 300 years ago. If you asked her what she was, she would tell you she was Roman, not Italian. Italy did not exist, not Catholic in the modern sense. The schism with the East was still 400 years away. Roman, that is who she was. Her village had a magistrate with a Latin title. The local bishop kept Roman legal records. When she got married, the contract was written in a degraded, simplified Latin, but Latin nonetheless. She lived under a Lombard king, a barbarian according to the textbooks, but the Lombard king issued laws written in Latin, modelled on Roman law, and called himself by Roman titles. The barbarians who destroyed Rome spent the next 4 centuries cosplaying as Romans, because the only thing that made power legitimate in their world was Rome. This is something the textbooks really fail to convey. Nobody after 476 wanted to be a barbarian. Everybody wanted to be Roman. The Visigothic kings of Spain called themselves Roman. The Frankish kings of Gaul minted coins with Roman emperors' faces on them, emperors who had been dead for 100 years. They did not see themselves as the new thing. They saw themselves as the heirs. Let me give you 3 small facts that history class never told you. Fact 1. The Roman Senate kept meeting in the city of Rome until at least the year 603. That is 127 years after Rome supposedly fell. Senators still wore the toga. They still debated. They still issued decrees. They did this under barbarian rule, but they did it. There is a letter from Pope Gregory the Great from the year 593 complaining that senators were neglecting their duties. He was not complaining about a relic. He was complaining about active, functioning Roman politicians in the city of Rome, more than a century after the empire had supposedly ended. Fact 2. The last inscription written in Latin in Egypt dates to roughly the 8th century. 8th century. Egypt had been under Arab Muslim rule for over 100 years at that point, and somewhere in some village along the Nile, a Christian community was still carving Latin into stone, a language that was, by then, 1,000 years old in that region. They kept carving it because they were still Roman, even after Rome itself was gone, even after Constantinople could not reach them. They kept being Roman because they did not know how to be anything else. Fact 3. In the year 800, on Christmas Day, a Frankish king named Charlemagne was crowned in Rome by the Pope, and the title they gave him was not King of the Franks. He already had that title. The title they gave him was Emperor of the Romans. Think about that. 324 years after Rome fell, a pope was still crowning Roman emperors. There were now 2 Roman emperors in the world. One in the west, in Aachen, crowned by the Pope, one in the east, in Constantinople, crowned by the Patriarch. They hated each other. They wrote each other furious diplomatic letters arguing about which one of them was the real Roman emperor. Neither one of them said Rome ended in 476, because they were Rome. I want you to feel the strangeness of this. Imagine 500 years from now, 2 different countries are still calling themselves the United States. They still elect a president. They still fly the flag. They still recite the pledge. They still hate each other and argue about who is the real America. That is the world of the year 800. That is the long, strange afterlife of Rome. The empire did not fall. The empire fractured into copies of itself, and those copies kept going. The eastern one, the one in Constantinople, kept going for another 653 years after Charlemagne was crowned. 653 years, that is longer than the entire history of the United States, twice over, almost 3 times. This is what the textbooks miss. This is what the phrase fall of Rome in 476 steals from you. It steals 6.5 centuries of Roman history, 6.5 centuries of Roman emperors, Roman wars, Roman art, Roman law, Roman trade, Roman daily life. An entire civilization that lived, breathed, suffered, and built, and called itself Roman to the very last hour. Now we come to it. The morning of May 29th, 1453. The city of Constantinople has been under siege for 53 days. The Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, 21 years old, brilliant, ambitious, sleepless, has brought to its walls the largest army anywhere in the world that year. 80,000 men, maybe more. And he has brought something new. Something the walls of Constantinople have never seen in 1123 years of standing. Cannons. Enormous cannons. One of them so large it had to be dragged into position by 60 oxen and 200 men. A cannon that, when it fired, could be heard from 10 miles away. A cannon that fired stone balls the size of a man. For 53 days, those cannons have been pounding the walls of the city. Inside the city, there are 7,000 defenders, 7,000, to defend 12 miles of wall against 80,000. The Roman Emperor, and yes, he is still called the Roman Emperor, that is his title, Basilius ton Romaion, Emperor of the Romans. His name is Constantine the 11th, Constantine Palaiologos. He is 48 years old. He has been emperor for 4 years. He has no children. He has no money. He has no allies coming to save him. He knows the city will fall. Everyone knows. The night before the final assault, the night of May 28th, Constantine the 11th, last Roman emperor, gathers his commanders inside the great palace. He gives a speech. We have a partial record of it transmitted by a Greek historian named George Francis, who was in the room. The emperor told his men, "Each of you remembers that you are descendants of Greeks and Romans." He reminded them that they were the heirs of Augustus, of Constantine the founder, of Justinian, of 1,000 years of Roman emperors. He told them that the city, which Constantine the Great had founded in 330, exactly 1,123 years earlier, would not fall while there was a Roman left to defend it. Then he went to the Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in Christendom, 916 years old, built by Justinian the Roman Emperor, who, in the 6th century, had briefly reconquered Italy and tried to restore the empire. Constantine prayed inside the Hagia Sophia. He took communion. He asked forgiveness from every person there for any wrong he might have done. Then he walked out, mounted his horse, and rode to the walls. He never came back. The final assault began at 1:30 in the morning. The Ottomans attacked in waves. First, the irregulars, disposable troops, sent to exhaust the defenders, then the Anatolian regulars, then the Janissaries, the elite, the best soldiers in the world. Somewhere around dawn, a small gate in the wall on the Kirkeporta was left unlocked. A handful of Ottoman soldiers slipped through. They climbed a tower. They raised the Ottoman flag. When the defenders on the walls saw that flag, they broke. Constantine the 11th was at the St. Romanus Gate when the line collapsed. According to the chroniclers, he turned to his last companions, a Spanish nobleman, a Greek cousin, a few others, and said, "The city is fallen, and I am still alive." Then he tore the imperial regalia from his shoulders, the purple cloak, the double-headed eagle. He threw them on the ground so that no one would recognize him. He drew his sword and charged into the Ottoman soldiers pouring through the breach. His body was never identified. Somewhere in the pile of dead Romans at the St. Romanus Gate that morning, the last Roman emperor died. Anonymous, unrecognized, just another body in armor. The unbroken line of Roman emperors that had begun with Augustus in the year 27 BC, 1,480 years earlier, ended in that pile. 1,480 years, not 503, not until 476, 1,480 years of Rome. For the rest of that day, the city was sacked. The Hagia Sophia was full of refugees praying for a miracle. There was no miracle. By the afternoon, the conqueror Mehmed II rode through the streets to the great church, dismounted, and walked inside. He converted it on the spot into a mosque. That woman I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, the last Roman citizen, she was somewhere in the city that morning. We will never know her name. She might have been killed in the sack. She might have been taken into slavery. She might have escaped over the walls and died of starvation in the countryside 3 weeks later. What we know is this: she thought she was Roman. Her parents had told her she was Roman. Her great-grandparents had told her ancestors they were Roman. Her language, her faith, her city, her emperor, all of them, in her mind, descended in an unbroken line from Augustus, from the founding of the empire, from a time when wolves still nursed orphans on the 7 hills of Italy, and when the sun set on May 29th, 1453. She was wrong. There was no Rome anymore. There was no emperor. There was no empire. There was a new world, and she was not in it. She was the last Roman, and nobody told her. This is why I made this video, because when you say Rome fell in 476, you are erasing her. You are erasing all of them. The 977 years of Romans who lived after the date your textbook gave you, the senators of Rome in 603, the Latin carver in 8th century Egypt, the emperor crowned in 800, the mothers, the soldiers, the priests, the merchants, the children, all of them, generation after generation, who woke up and went to sleep believing themselves to be Roman. They mattered. Their lives mattered. Their long, slow, magnificent, exhausting agony mattered. History is not the moment of collapse. History is the centuries you didn't know about. History is the woman who died Roman on a Tuesday in 1453 and never knew she was the last. The greatest empire in human history did not fall in a year. It did not fall in a decade. It fell in a millennium. And now you know. If this video meant something to you, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is the next piece of history you want me to reconstruct? What is the story your school never told you? What dates do you want me to question? What facts do you want me to dig under? I read every single comment. I plan future videos based on what you ask. Your comment will shape what comes next on this channel, and if you are new here, welcome. This is Walter Reconstructs History. We tell history the way it actually happened, not the way it got compressed into a textbook. Subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you in the next reconstruction. Until then, remember, Rome did not fall in 476. Rome was you paying attention. Rome ends when nobody remembers.